Wow, look at that! Shouted out a boy, pointing at the sky. Look at what? His friend shouted back, busy throwing firecrackers and bangers at timid girl. It was firework night, but now, quite suddenly, it was one with a big difference. There, up there, look, it's magic! He shouted back breathlessly. They looked up, following his gaze. There, in the clear night sky for all to see, was a massive firestorm of meteorites and shooting stars, accompanied by a distant and far-off rumbling of thunder, grumbling like an angry beast. People of all ages crowded the streets outside their homes to stare. Children would not go to bed. Television and computer games were forgotten. This was the most exciting thing that anyone could remember. Then, as dawn approached, the firestorm suddenly stopped, and the night sky returned once more to peace. There was no peace at the other end of the universe. Exhausted by the furious battle seen from Earth, the High Council was in emergency session. An ancient voice rang out.
The alien force is defeated, and its leader now trapped within this dwarf planet. She must never be allowed to escape. Grand protectors of the universe, you must find and train those who are needed to help protect their own planets. The aliens have friends hidden and waiting everywhere. They must be stopped. The universe must never be attacked like this again. 2PIE AHR, you are responsible for planet Earth. Your ship awaits you. It will lead you to the chosen one.
The light of the dwarf planet now dimmed. The emergency meeting was at an end. A spaceship, like a brilliant comet, arched up and away from the fading light and sped towards the center of the universe. Within this speeding ball of light, there were voices. Ho-hum, what exciting times we live in, dear R, said a deep voice. Exciting times indeed, 2PIE, replied a sharper voice. Our capture of the Mogul Witch was a masterstroke. She will enjoy her stay on the dwarf planet, replied 2PIE with a chuckle. They were now close to the very center of the universe. The coordinates are set for planet Earth, said 2PIE. The Earthling will be found. It will need to be taught very well and thoroughly, 2PIE, answered the sharp voice of R. Yes, but we must be patient. We have time, replied 2PIE. The ball of light now darted downwards and began to slow as it approached the brilliant light of a blue planet, planet Earth. It approached lands and oceans in the growing darkness, and then headed downwards towards the lights of a city. Closer still now, rows of small houses, illuminated by street lights, came into view. The ball of light approached a simple home and stopped outside a window. A young girl was watching television. A woman entered the room. Well, well, murmured the surprised voice of 2PIE. A young Earthling girl. Who would have thought it? Just as I feared, replied R sharply. This is going to give us a lot more work to do. We must start at once. Time for bed, Delia, said her mother firmly, as she switched off the television for the second time. The shooting star show is over. But Mum, protested the freckled face, it's early, and all my friends will be watching. It's not fair. I don't believe it. You will be tired for school, so please do as I say, and off to bed. Delia knew it was useless to protest. Nag, 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 she hissed under her breath as she stamped noisily up the stairs to her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. She tripped over something in the dark. It was Ted, her much-loved teddy bear. She picked Ted up off the floor with a hug. He had been with Delia ever since she could remember. She didn't have any brothers or sisters, so the handsome bear with a friendly face was the one she talked to and told her secrets to. Delia suddenly felt very tired. She climbed into bed and snuggled the bear down beside her. She switched off the bedside light. She had hardly dropped off to sleep when she woke with a start. The bedroom curtains were glowing with light. Ted was missing. She reached over the side of the bed. She couldn't find him. She lifted her head, leaned over and looked. He was nowhere to be seen. She got out of bed. Her bedroom was the same, but somehow it felt different. She peered through the curtains, blinked and peered again. It was day and the sun was shining brightly. But what had happened? Everything had changed. The dripping trees, grey streets and dreary houses she was used to had vanished. Instead, she saw glowing green fields and countryside. A big wood with tall trees had replaced an enormous office block. There was a pretty garden below her bedroom window. A stone pathway led down to a leafy hedge and a wicket gate. The sun streamed in. The sky was a deep blue. Birds were singing. Was she dreaming? Delia looked again for Ted, but still couldn't find him. She thought about getting dressed. She looked down and saw that her shoes were already on her feet. In fact, she realized that she was already fully dressed. She opened her bedroom door. Brilliant sunlight filled the passageway, only it wasn't the passageway she knew. It led to a large landing with wide wooden stairs and carved handrails. The polished wooden stairs led down to a big living room, which was partly hidden from view. Although totally confused, Delia was not afraid. There was a delicious smell of toast as she reached the bottom of the stairs. Ahead of her was a large wooden table laid for breakfast. Delia stared in disbelief. There, sitting at the table, eating cereal, was Ted. Yes, definitely Ted, only he was bigger. Ted looked up and waved a paw in greeting. "What are you doing here?" exclaimed Delia, hardly able to speak. "Having breakfast, what does it look like?" replied the bear cheekily. His companion at the table, a fair, curly-haired girl, about the same age as Delia, looked round and waved. "It's Delia, Alice. She's down for breakfast." Delia couldn't believe her eyes and ears. She looked like June and sounded just like her best friend June. It was June. No doubt about it. Strangest of all, everything seemed curiously normal. It seemed natural to have a talking bear. She sat down next to June. There was a sound of footsteps. A young woman entered the room. Weird, thought Delia. Who is Alice? She reminded her slightly of her own mother, but also of nice Miss Smith, the English teacher from school. "As soon as you three have finished breakfast," she said, pouring out some orange juice for Delia, "could you gather some of those special bluebells from deep in Magic Wood? They would look wonderful in this special vase." Soon they were ready to search for the bluebells. "Remember not to tread on the elves and fairies, Ted," said June as they opened the front door, "or they'll trap us in the wood forever." "I haven't trod on any yet," said Ted grumpily. The front door closed behind them. Outside, the sun shone brightly as they walked down the garden to the wicket gate. They crossed a field to the edge of the large wood Delia had seen from her bedroom window, which Alice had called Magic Wood. It was home to tiny elves and strange woodland folk who cultivated the wild flowers and swept the paths. A witch was known to live in a cottage somewhere in the middle of the wood, where the trees were much taller and older and whispered to each other. As soon as they entered the wood, they came across a hedgehog lumbering along with a coat of leaves stuck to his bristles. "Silly old hedgehog," said June affectionately. "He's been sleeping in the leaves again." They shouted out his name, but he didn't answer and shuffled off out of view. Delia somehow knew that he was special. Just how special, she would find out later. For the first part of their journey, Magic Wood was carpeted with wildflowers on either side of the pathway. Their color was illuminated by a dappled sun and brightened up by the presence of tiny elves. Deeper into the older part of the wood, it became darker and more mysterious. They would have to pass through the darkest part of the wood to find the clearing where Alice had spotted the bluebells. As they strolled on, there was a sudden movement ahead of them. The branches of trees began to wave and sway, as if in a strong wind, but there wasn't any. There was definitely something moving because they could hear the cracking of twigs and branches being trodden underfoot. Suddenly, ahead of them, but still some way off, two very strange creatures crossed the pathway and vanished from view as quickly as they had appeared. The first was very round and tall, with a wide belt around its middle, and on its head a sort of cap, which looked like a helmet with a wire sticking out of the top of it. The second looked like a large worm with a pointed tail. It had arms and legs and wore a large floppy hat, which looked like a nightcap, with a bell which tinkled as it moved along. "Wow," said Ted. "Did you see that?" "Yes," said Delia. "Yes," said June. They were silent for a moment. "Whatever they are, they don't frighten me," said Ted bravely. Just then, with a shuffle and a snuffle and a yush-yush, Hedgehog reappeared from the same spot where the creatures had just vanished. "Hey, Hedgehog," said Ted. "You must have seen those funny creatures. Who are they?" Wise old Hedgehog didn't say anything, but signaled for them all to follow him. After some time, they came to the great tree, an enormous oak tree right in the middle of the wood. Hedgehog pointed at the base of the great tree. To their surprise, a small door opened slowly and silently inwards. Hedgehog was pointing at the doorway to the great tree. "He wants us to go in," said Ted, marching straight in through the entrance. Delia and June followed suspiciously behind. They found themselves in a large and airy chamber. The door closed suddenly behind them. Hedgehog was nowhere to be seen. Worse still, on the inside there wasn't a door handle. They were trapped. Around the inside of the tree, they could see a staircase which spiraled upwards. It was lit by hundreds of little pinpricks of bright light. "Look, it's all glowworms," said June excitedly. "Loads and loads of them." It was true. The little glowing creatures were everywhere. "Come on," said Ted. "Follow me." He started to climb the stairs. "Where are we going?" said June. "I don't know," said Ted. "We can't stay here and we can't get out that way, so we'd better climb the stairs." Instead of feeling trapped, they now felt really excited. Climbing up the spiral staircase was easy. They had forgotten completely about collecting the bluebells. It was a new adventure. Up and up they went, until Ted had to stop. A big round wooden door was blocking the way above his head. "Try pushing it," said Delia. Ted pushed hard. Immediately the door glowed brightly and strange lettering and words appeared written round the edges, which didn't make any sense. In the middle, there was an instruction which flashed on and off. Terms and conditions apply. A loud bossy voice shouted at them from the other side of the door.
"Oi! Who goes there? Break in if you dare! Be you friend or be you foe? If you be friend, then password send. If you be foe, I'll tread on your toe.
The round wooden door above their head revolved with a whir, then stopped. A face now appeared. It had large staring eyes, a large mouth, and a nose that looked like a doorknob.
Well, job's worth waiting. Who are you, and what's your business? This is the entrance to a very important planet.
We don't have any business, said Delia. We climbed up the stairs of the tree and can't go back.
That's daft. You should have flown. Did you see the sign?
What sign? Demanded Delia.
Terms and conditions apply.
What does that mean? Asked June.
Terms and conditions apply. Obliged if you don't ask me why, for it's wise to be muddled or your brains becomes fuddled as to why you climbed up so high. There,
said the voice in the door.
now you know.
It still doesn't mean anything, answered June in a challenging voice.
It doesn't have to mean anything except I'm in charge. More than my job's worth to just let anyone in willy-nilly.
They now noticed the writing round the door and realised that what they had seen before had been back to front. It was an instruction. It said, "Turn the doorknob and pull firmly."
Well,
said the bossy voice.
have you got a password? Can't let you in without one. It's against the rules.
You'll have to, said Ted. We can't go back and there's nowhere else to go.
A likely story.
Snapped the face in the door.
Wait there.
The door revolved once more with a whir. The face disappeared. They hadn't long to wait. Quick as a flash, the face reappeared.
Right, it seems like you was expected, so you can enter.
But how do we get in? Said June.
Can't you read?
Snapped the voice.
Do what it says, and mind the gap. And careful with the doorknob. It's my nose and I can get upset.
Ted couldn't wait. He squeezed it as hard as he could and twisted sharply.
Ouch! Not so hard, I'm warning you.
Ted kept squeezing and turning and pulling as hard as he could. It wouldn't budge. Why don't you try pushing instead of pulling? Said Delia. Ted did so, and immediately the round wooden door with the irritated face and watering eyes opened easily and silently upwards.
Come on then, what are you waiting for?
Said the voice in the door.
Mind the gap before terms and conditions apply.
They climbed up and out, leaving a very annoyed face still muttering to itself about
Stupid, ignorant bears.
Stretching out above their heads was a dark sky, but brilliantly lit by the brightest stars they had ever seen. "Wow, I don't believe it," gasped Delia. "Nor me," squeaked June. They were now standing on a tiny planet. It was so small, its curving edge was clear to see. It had a sandy surface. There were plants that looked like miniature trees that tinkled in the slightest movement of air. Not far away, they could see a hump in the ground that looked like a weird cottage, with a crooked chimney which was puffing out smiley clouds of smoke. "Ho hum, here you are then," said a voice behind them which made them jump. "No doubt you have met our good and loyal friend Jobsworth, who has important things to do and likes to boast about it to everyone." The next moment the voice was in front of them. The faint image of a ghostly creature slowly appeared and became solid. "My name is PIE, and this," said the creature pointing behind him, "is AHR." At once, Delia, June and Ted remembered the creatures they had seen crossing the pathway in Magic Wood. So that was why Hedgehog had led them to the great tree. Here they were again, except now in this very different and wild place. "Where are we?" they all said together. "Wherever you like," said R. "It's very simple," said Tupai kindly. "You have always had the power to be what you like and where you like if you believe hard enough." "We didn't think about coming here," said Ted emphatically. "Yes, you did. Your curiosity made the request," said R sharply. "What is this place?" asked Delia, keeping calm. "It is a dwarf planet," said Tupai. "It is a very important place that keeps all things safe." Before he could finish, there was a loud bang and a whoosh nearby. A huge shower of sparks and flame shot out of a large hole into the sky, turning into a menacing cloud with an angry face. "Eek, that's scary," squeaked June, holding tightly onto Ted. "Great fireworks," grinned Ted. "Isn't that what volcanoes do?" challenged Delia in a worried voice. "No, it's not what you Earthlings call a volcano," answered Tupai gently. "It is a dark force that is kept safely here so that it can no longer harm the universe. Don't be afraid, you have nothing to fear. Soon you will know more." A long, rumbling groan now filled the air from the direction of the same hole, making the ground shake. "I think it's got bellyache," said Ted with a grin. "It doesn't sound very happy," said Delia. "Let's go and meet my sister," said R quickly before any more questions could be asked. "She lives over there," pointing to the hump-like cottage they had already noticed. R knocked on the door. Immediately it was opened by something that looked just like R, but much more excitable. "This is my nephew, Pa. He likes fun and playing tricks on people, so be careful. Tell your mother we have some visitors." Pa vanished. His place at the door was taken by a large and jolly creature. She had untidy hair and was wearing an apron decorated with planets. Come in," she said. "You must be hungry. Let's have something to eat." They went into a room which grew in size as they looked. Logs burned in the grate of a large fireplace. Big portraits of ancestors hung on the wall. There was a large and highly polished table in the middle of the room, and even as they looked, plates of food appeared. Every chocolate biscuit and every cream cake they had ever dreamed of now crowded the table. "Have plenty," urged Mrs. Parr encouragingly. But before they could eat anything, the Parr creature suddenly reappeared with a mischievous grin on his face, carrying what looked like a plate of round cakes. "Now, Pa, not now," said R sternly. "Mooncakes are not wise nor clever." Pa put the plate down quickly, and then excitedly asked them so many questions all at once, they all felt quite dizzy. He said he wanted to visit them, and would come as soon as he could. The ground now shook again, and they heard the same rumbling groan, this time coming through a half-open door of a room with flashing lights and computer screens. "That's the planet control room. It keeps the planet safe," said R, shutting the door firmly. He told them it was time to leave. In the blink of an eye, they were outside the cottage. They forgot to worry about another burst of flame from the dark force, because they suddenly felt very tired. Delia stared in astonishment at the square buckle on Tupai's belt. June and Ted saw the look of surprise on her face, and looked too. There, in the middle of the buckle, was a picture of magic wood. There was no doubt about it. To one side, they could see the pathway leading out of the wood to their own cottage. They could see the branches of the trees moving, the cottage itself, and Alice in the garden. Amazingly, she was moving around too. It was like a film. "Time for you to return home," said 2-Pi kindly. "You are expected for tea with your collection of bluebells." "But we'll need to find that Jobsworth and that tree again," said Ted grumpily. "That will take you far too long," said 2-Pi. "You must understand what we have already told you and what you can do. You can be where you like if you believe hard enough. Do it now. Join your hands together in a circle. Close your eyes. Think of where you want to go, and you will go. We will meet again very soon. Wait for a sign. We have much to do together." They made a circle, held hands, closed their eyes, thought of magic wood and their cottage, and suddenly, to their astonishment, they found themselves rising up off the ground and flying through the air, turning over and over. They held onto each other very tightly. Darkness changed to light. They landed with a bump in their cottage garden and fell over. There was a moment of silence. "Wow, we flew!" gasped Delia, lying on her back. "I can't believe it," squeaked June. "A bumpy landing," said Ted, looking dazed and sitting back. "I thought I heard you," said Alice, smiling as she opened the door. "Up you get, it's time for tea." Alice seemed not to have noticed that they had been away for ages. In fact, she said they hadn't been away for long at all. She was so pleased that they had remembered to collect the bluebells. When they tried to tell her of their adventures on the planet and that they had flown through the air, all she said was, "Yes, dears," in that annoying sort of voice that grown-ups sometimes use for saying they don't believe you. Just you wait, they thought to themselves. You'll see. Alice put the bluebells into a glass vase and placed them by the front door. She was puzzled where they had collected them from. These were much bigger than the normal ones in magic wood. Delia, June and Ted went to bed really tired after their crazy time on a little planet. Everything had been a whirl of excitement and extraordinary creatures they had met. Hedgehog, Jobsworth, 2-Pi AHR and Pa. They were asleep before they could say Planet Pa. Rat-a-tat-tat! Delia woke with a start. She was back in her own bedroom by herself. Ted was somewhere else. Everything was topsy-turvy. Where had she been? Had she really been flying? Rat-a-tat-tat! There was that noise again, only louder. It was coming from her bedroom window. She jumped out of bed and opened the curtains. A large broomstick was trying to get in through the opening at the top. Delia knew it was a broomstick. It had a long wooden shaft with a bunch of bristly sticks tied to its bottom. The wooden shaft was partly through the window opening and was trying to rattle its way through. "Clear off! You can't come in here!" shouted Delia as she pushed the window up tight, trapping the broomstick. Brrrm! Went the broomstick, trying to shake itself free and nearly breaking the window. After a few moments, it rattled itself out of the window and fell back down into the garden with a ploppety sort of thud. Delia slammed the window tight shut and looked out down below. The broomstick lay still for a moment, then shook itself, leapt into the air and vanished with a whoosh in the direction of Magic Wall. Weird, thought Delia. Flying broomsticks, what next? She heard voices downstairs. Something was happening. She got to the bottom of the stairs. There was Alice with June and Ted behind her, looking at the window by the front door. She was cross. "Those naughty broomsticks have been in here again. Someone left the window open last night. What have they stolen this time?" A flower vase was lying on its side. "Now I'm really cross," she said. "They've taken all those beautiful bluebells you brought me last night." "What for?" said Delia. "The broomsticks belong to the Wicked Witch. She probably sent them to find the bluebells and bring them to her so she can mix them with slugs and tadpoles and make soup." "Ugh, that's disgusting," said Delia with a shudder. Now she knew where the flying broomstick had come from. "I know it sounds horrid," said Alice, "but she thinks that the bluebells especially will help her become beautiful again." "But witches aren't meant to be beautiful, are they?" replied Delia. "That is what we are told to believe," said Alice. "But this witch was once upon a time, and not long ago, a beautiful but spoilt princess. She had all she wanted, but she was bored. Then one day, unknown to the king and queen, the magician came to visit her room in the palace, and said that if she gave him a bag filled with jewels, she could have something very special in return. She could either have the most handsome prince in the world to marry, or she could have brilliant magical powers. Not being the slightest bit interested in a handsome prince or getting married, she chose magic. She gave the magician some of her jewels. She had so many she didn't care. The magician took the jewels, handed her a wand which glowed, looked at her and smiled a strange smile. She would soon realize why. "Point the wand at your cat over there and say, 'Cat, to a toad thou shalt go.'" She did so, and to her amazement and pleasure, the cat shrank to a squat toad and hopped off. She couldn't wait to use the magic on others. What fun she would have with her new power. The magician left her. She went to stand in front of her mirror to see how amazing she looked with the wand. She was horrified to see that the person looking at her was not the beautiful princess she was used to, but an old and ugly woman with a hooked nose and a black pointed hat. Now, too late, she knew why the magician had been smiling at her. She knew she would soon be called for supper with the king and queen. She knew she couldn't change back again. She had to escape. She had to hide. She noticed that the magician had left a large broomstick leaning up against the wall. She knew what to do. She opened her window and, pointing her wand at the broomstick, she told it to fly to a place where she would be difficult to find. So that is how she came to live in the middle of Magic Wood. Her cottage doesn't have any mirrors, and she leaves the windows dirty because she can't bear the sight of her own reflection. She has become something she hadn't expected and doesn't yet know how to change back again. That has made her angry and mean. Ted and June didn't seem surprised. It was as though they had heard the story before and knew. "Why did she want your bluebells?" asked Delia. "You said Magic Wood was full of them." "The ones you brought me were much bigger and very special. I have never seen any so perfect. I wonder where you found them." None of them could answer. They couldn't remember picking the bluebells. They only remembered climbing up the great tree, Jobsworth, 2 PIE AHR, and the dwarf planet. However, they did remember landing each with a bunch of bluebells in their hand. "The broomsticks won't have taken them all," said Delia with a grin. "I have some in my bedroom, and I stopped the broomstick from getting in." She ran upstairs to get them. Moments later she reappeared. "They've gone," she said. "That's impossible." "Not quite impossible," said Alice gently. "You see, the broomstick will have seen the bluebells when you opened the curtains and told the wicked witch. She will have used her magic powers." "How do you know all of this?" asked Delia. "I just know," said Alice softly. "Anyway, that's very unfair on you," said Delia firmly. "Come on," she said to June and Ted. "Let's go and get some more. We'll show her." They were out of the front door before Alice could warn them to keep clear of the wicked witch's cottage. As they hurried on in the direction of Bluebell Field, they passed the great tree. The doorway, they remembered, was nowhere to be seen. Now they were passing a large pool, partly hidden by tall rushes. Something was moving in the water. Delia stopped and looked. She saw a large seal swimming with his sleek black head above the water. "What are you doing here?" asked Delia in surprise. "Minding my own business," said the seal. "That's Solly," said June. He's come to live in Magic Wood. But aren't you meant to live in the sea? Said Delia to the seal. I prefer it here, replied Solly. It's comfortable pool, and the fish in the river are nicer. He then asked them where they were going. They told him. The Wicked Witch's cottage is just over there, said Solly, so be careful. Don't worry, Solly, said Ted. She won't see us. Her broomsticks will, though, advised Solly, and they'll tell her. We'll be ready, said Ted bravely. Any trouble, just let me know and I'll squirt her, said Solly. You'll do what? Asked Delia in surprise. Squirt her with water, replied Solly. It takes away her power, which is why she leaves me alone. Delia, June and Ted walked on. The Wicked Witch's cottage now came into view. It had a thatched roof with a crooked chimney, with smoke billowing out of the top of it. The cottage was surrounded by upturned broomsticks in a circle. As they approached, the nearest broomstick started to quiver and shake. Suddenly, a window was flung open. There was the witch. She had a mean, thin face, a hooked nose, and wore a black, pointed hat on her head. Keep away, you horrid little urchins, or I'll put you in a pot and boil you, she shrieked. I'm warning you. We're not urchins, shouted Delia back furiously. You've no right to talk to us like that, you horrid old woman. We're not doing you any harm. You stole Alice's bluebells, and we're on our way to collect some more. Ha ha, hissed the witch. You won't find any, you urchins, because I've put them all in the cooking pot. She slammed the window shut. It was true. When they reached the place where the bluebells grew, there wasn't one to be seen. There was nothing to do now except to return empty-handed to their cottage. This time they kept well clear of the witch's cottage, and were just passing the great tree when they heard a bumping and banging noise. Suddenly the hidden door flew open, and out rolled a creature, head over heels in a cloud of dust. They suddenly remembered meeting that excitable Pa on the dwarf planet, who said he would come to see them. It must be Pa. There was no mistaking Mrs. Pa's son who lived in the Smiley cottage. Oi, come back here, I'm warning you, shouted out the unmistakable voice of Jobsworth, high up inside the great tree. Ha ha, shouted out Pa, looking very pleased with himself as he stood up, dusting himself down. I did it! I did it! He had somehow got past Jobsworth's guarded door. He was hugely excited. He didn't seem to notice Delia, June and Ted, but instead rushed off down the pathway as fast as he could go. He charged straight ahead through some tall rushes. There was a great splash. Crazy creature, said Delia. I think he's fallen into Solly's pool. Solly was looking surprised and startled. Horrid, nasty liquid, said Pa accusingly as he jumped out of Solly's pool, soaking wet. I'm going over there to get rid of it.
he rushed off at speed once more, this time in the direction of the Wicked Witch's cottage. Solly did not have time to warn the weird and rude creature about where it was going. Now Delia, June and Ted appeared through the rushes. Busy morning, thought Solly. That's Pa from another planet, said Delia, panting a little. He's crazy and now he's gone to the Wicked Witch's cottage. Didn't you tell him that it was dangerous? I would have mentioned it, said Solly, but it wasn't listening. Oh dear, they all thought. Big problem. Pa had already opened the witch's cottage door and gone inside. The door slammed shut behind him. Big problem. I know, said June. Let's do that circle thing and call 2Pi for help. So that's what they did. They joined hands and thought hard about 2Pi appearing. In a flash and with a ho-hum, there was 2Pi beside them. Pa's suddenly arrived and got wet and is now in the Wicked Witch's cottage, said Delia quickly. She's nasty and rude and will try to harm him. Said 2Pi. That could be awkward. I'm not permitted to challenge the witch's power in her own home. Why is he in such a hurry? Asked June. He's always in a hurry. He's likeable and fun when he isn't in trouble. Looks like he's in trouble now, said Ted with a grin. We're going to have to find something else, said 2Pi. I know, said Delia. Solly the seal, she said, pointing in the direction of the pool. He says the witch leaves him alone because she is afraid of him squirting her with water. True indeed, replied 2Pi. If water touches a witch, it takes away her power for a time. That's what you said, didn't you? Said Delia to Solly, who was wondering why everything had gone mad. First a weird creature barges into his pool without asking, and now he has another strange creature he had never seen before. Solly, you said you could do it, didn't you? Insisted Delia excitedly. You said you would creep up to the witch's window, get her to open it, and then squirt water all over her. Anything for a bit of peace, he thought. So he said he would. He left the pool with puffed cheeks full of water and lolloped along towards the cottage. Meanwhile, as soon as Pa had entered the witch's cottage, the door slammed shut behind him. Like his own cottage on the planet, it was much bigger inside than outside. Pa found himself in a large room with a table in the middle. Around the walls he saw strange letters and symbols he didn't understand. On top of the table were two flat eyes joined together that glinted at him. He picked them up. He put them on his nose and peered through them. He saw great swirls of glittering coloured clouds twisting and turning like smoke. As he looked, the clouds began to clear. He saw strange things. There was a noise at the end of the passage. He quickly put the eyes back on the table and followed the sound. He was now in a room with a fire to dry himself. Hanging above it was a huge metal pot of bubbling water. Suddenly, out of the shadows crept a creature, dressed all in black and wearing a pointed hat. It came right up close to Pa's face. It was ugly and unfriendly. It was the Wicked Witch.
"Ha ha," she hissed. "You look nice and plump."
Yes, yes, answered menacing voices from other creatures also in black, who now slid out of the shadows towards him. Pa was surrounded. He didn't know how to be afraid, but what were they saying? He saw that they were preparing to cook something in a pot, like Mrs. Pa, his mother, did. He suddenly realized it could be him. The next moment, the Wicked Witch was warned by her broomsticks that something was approaching the cottage. She rushed to the window and flung it open. Just as she started to shriek at the intruder, a jet of water shot through the window and hit her in the face, drenching her. She screamed out in fury. The cottage door, which had been firmly shut and locked, flew open. The witch's helpers immediately shrank back into the shadows. Pa decided this was not a friendly place and that he had better go. As he hurried out of the front door, he snatched the glinting flat eyes he had seen on the table and popped them under his hat. Strutting spheres, he thought. That was close. He started back along the path he had come down and looked up. Popping planets and oops, thought Pa with alarm. What is he doing here? Pie was waiting for him in the middle of the path. He was not looking pleased. Pa approached him slowly, head down. He knew he was in big trouble. "I just couldn't wait to see my new friends who came to visit the planet," he blurted out all at once. "Then I got into a spot of bother." "I know exactly what you have been doing," said Pie sternly. "You have this seal to thank for your escape from the cooking pot," pointing at Solly. "Let this be a lesson to you, if there ever can be one for someone like you." At last Pa seemed to be aware of Delia, June and Ted. He did as he was told, and thanked this new creature they called Solly, who was swimming around in that horrid liquid. Better still, instead of being sent back to the planet in disgrace, Pie was going to let him stay with his new friends. He was advising the girls and Ted to return at once to their own cottage for tea, taking Pa with them. The witch would very soon recover her powers. She would be very angry and would be looking for them. As they quickly left, her screams of fury could clearly be heard.
"Ah! Bring them back! Curses on you all!"
Bring back what? They wondered. They had no idea that Pa had taken something from the Wicked Witch's cottage. Pie vanished from sight.
"Tea sounds good,"
said Pa, now back to his cheerful self as they hurried along.
"I brought something with me which we can share."
As they passed the great tree, Pa reached inside the still open door and picked up 2 large bulging bags.
"I brought you mooncakes. My mother makes them. They're very special," said Pa,
with a mischievous grin. "What's in the other bag?" said Ted, his stomach already rumbling.
Stars, answered Pa in a matter-of-fact voice. Stars? What? Real ones? Exclaimed June. Yes, real ones that shine all around my planet, said Pa, getting excited again. I haven't got anything else to do, so I collect them. I don't believe you. Show us, demanded Delia. Pa put his hand inside the bag that seemed to be moving and pulled out a brilliantly shining star. It blazed with such a bright light that it almost blinded them. Pa handed the now quivering star to Delia. Before she could take hold of it, it shook itself free and roared up like a rocket towards the sky, leaving a glittering trail behind it. It disappeared in a flash. Pa tried again with another, again with the same result. Then in his hurry to get another, he dropped the bag, which fell open. Out tumbled all the remaining stars in a great roar of energy and blinding light, brilliantly lighting the entire wood. Delia, June and Ted fell over. Quick as a flash, the stars rose up together with a noise like thunder, criss-crossing each other's trail of glitter and joy, and vanished from sight. The rumble of their departure could be heard for quite a time. Popping Planet, shouted out Pa with delight. That's the best show yet. Much better than letting them out one at a time. Delia, June and Ted were now beginning to understand why PIE AHR had told them to be careful with this exhausting creature. Time for your warm tea, said Pa, just as excitedly, holding tight onto the one remaining bag. Where is it? At our cottage, of course, said Delia firmly. It will give Alice a big surprise. They were now passing the field where Delia, June and Ted kept their ponies. Pa stopped suddenly and looked at the ponies grazing in the field. Look at those hairy things, exclaimed Pa. Why have they put their arms on the ground? Are they tired? No, they're ponies. They have 4 legs, said Delia. Where are their hands? Asked Pa in a puzzled voice. They don't have any, replied June. Pa thought this very strange. What do they do then? Asked Pa, scratching the back of his head. We ride them, said Ted. It's great. What is riding? Said Pa, even more puzzled. We sit on them, said Delia. You sit on them? Exclaimed Pa, wondering why Earth creatures had to sit on each other. Don't they mind? No, they like it, said June. We have great fun, trotting and galloping. No wonder they put their arms on the ground. They must get very tired. I would. Pa followed the others across the field to the cottage. Unnoticed, he turned round quickly. He took the witch's glass eyes from under his hat. He put them on his nose and looked at the hairy earthlings they called ponies. He saw himself giving a piece of mooncake to one of them. The next moment he was sitting on it and it was flying through the air. Splintering satellites. This is better than any star game. He took the glass eyes off again. Everything was normal, with the hairy things on their arms and legs as before. He put the witch's glass eyes back on again. This time he saw himself and all the others riding their ponies through the sky. Come on, Pa, hurry up, shouted June. He popped the witch's glass eyes back under his hat. What were you looking at? Asked Delia. Just looking at your hairy friends, answered Pa excitedly, a mischievous smile growing on his face. Alice was very pleased to see them, and didn't mind at all that they suddenly had a very unusual guest for tea. They sat down together. Ted, who was feeling hungry, asked Pa for one of his cakes. Pa tipped them out of the bag onto a plate. They seemed to suddenly shimmer with a multicoloured array of lights. Pa passed him the plate with another smile of mischief on his face. Ted took a very large and delicious-looking bun. It was round and glowing red in colour. It was covered with currants and sugar. He took a large bite. No sooner had he thought how good it tasted than he found himself floating up out of his chair like a balloon. His head was now bumping against the ceiling.
Oi, growled Ted. What's happening? Let me down.
Delia and June looked at Ted in amazement.
It's you, Pa, isn't it?
Said Ted crossly from the ceiling.
Get me down at once.
Well, I would if I could, but there may be a problem. It seems that when you eat mooncakes here, you get light and float away like a balloon. Hee 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 hee. Luckily, Ted had swallowed only a very little of the cake. After a very short time, he felt himself getting heavier again. Very soon and very gently, he found himself sinking back down to the floor.
We've been warned about you, grumbled Ted. That wasn't funny.
Oh, it was, said Pa with a strange sort of cackle. Only it wasn't meant. I didn't know what the mooncakes were going to do. A new look of mischief now filled his face. Let's keep the rest for your hairy friends instead. Keep them for our ponies, squeaked Delia indignantly. How could you suggest such a thing? No, you don't understand, said Pa, purring with pleasure. These mooncakes will make your hairy friends fly.
Don't believe you, said Ted emphatically. If they're outside, they'll just float away.
No, they won't, urged Pa. How do you know? Challenged Delia. I have seen and I know, said Pa emphatically.